Hello, my name is Peter Welk. I'm the asbestos, lead and mold inspector. Today I would like to take you for a tour through an apartment in which I conducted asbestos inspection. Many people do not realize how many materials may contain asbestos. As a matter of fact, about 3,000 different materials used to contain asbestos. Asbestos was widely used in the 60s, 70s, 80s and even 90s, where still big supply existed on the market. So let's go for the tour.
This is an old apartment from 1930 and has many original materials like plaster that you can see on the wall, some underfloor materials like all kind of insulations that are there, maybe some waterproofing, all kind of things. They have to be tested because all of them are pretty much suspect materials, and most of them are contaminated, cross-contaminated, like the debris down there. So they're supposed to be tested as well because it may contain asbestos and may be very difficult to remove. Well, by abatement contractor, there will have to be dust control procedure following abatement regulations. I want to show you this shaft, which actually, when you look at this shaft, you see plaster, right? Actually, there are usually two coats. One of them is called brown coat. One of them is usually called white coat, the skim coat on top of it. If you look inside this chase, you see CMU blocks. They have a mortar. Mortar is pretty much asbestos-suspect material, so it should be tested. But most likely it's not, but you know, it's very old material, CMU, so we have to test it. You look right there and you see this paper here, this wrapping right here. This comes from like an old pipe insulation, so right away I was like, I thought there may be some asbestos pipe insulation. And when you look at this pipe back there, you know, the one on the left, in the back, this is actually no pipe insulation which contains asbestos material insulator, so it goes all the way up in the chase. So naturally this must be tested. All debris down there would probably be contaminated, so that's asbestos material. Another item in this apartment, you can tell it's like a high-end apartment, but also very old. So you can see the hardwood floor. It's actually no strange layers there. It's probably like an underlayment, hard to tell, but yeah, this is probably a structural material. But down below it, you can see all kind of debris and some kind of like a filling material. You know, this black stuff is like, you know, it looks like a piece of like a dark mortar or maybe some natural stone which they used to put in to provide additional insulation for heat or even acoustical. Right here on the walls you see plaster, which comes again in two coats. The white skim coat, below that is actually the brown coat of plaster on the metal mesh. Also this radiator. Typically paints don't contain asbestos, but since this is very old radiator and there's a lot of paint which actually coming off, and there's many of them, of these radiators, I will test the paint for asbestos material because there were a couple dozen years ago, they used to put asbestos everywhere, especially in the thermal materials, so this radiator would be one of them. You see that paint on the back, which is peeling terribly, many layers there. Actually, I tested them for lead and they contain lead, but that would be a good idea to also take a chip and test for asbestos. Since this location, again, this is like a thermal location, high-end apartment, you know, maybe it was also, you know, protected by paint which contains asbestos. So now, for the construction purpose, this is supposed to be tested. Another location in this apartment, this is kitchen, which actually underwent part of the demolition since the plaster was tested previously, was negative. You know, so the contractor could make some openings here because he knew that was not asbestos material. Also, these tiles were tested previously, so they don't contain asbestos. So the contractor made some openings, so this way we can see what's below the floor. Most important, there's actually no pipe, right? You see this piece of pipe which is not insulated, so that's a good sign. There was no asbestos material on it, at least in this location, and that's what we have here to take a look at. You can see the floor tiles. You know, floor tiles have a grout which has to be tested. Also have some, you know, underlayment, some thin set or adhesive, any material which they used to install the tiles are suspect materials. Right here in the corner you see the drywall, which is probably newer, but no, again, we don't know it, so this drywall has to be tested. There's a compound on it which has to be also tested. So this is this corner. I want to show you the other corner. It's actually open chase, so that's kind of nice opening here. I did not ask for it, but since they have it and they knew the plaster wasn't positive, so they they went ahead and opened it, so you can see like a newer generation drywall and a compound, you know, with a corner bit. So that's, well, we have to test it anyways, now we cannot skip it. Right now we want to go to the old materials, like this plaster on metal mesh. This is Suspect material, so it was tested. These pipes are pretty much have nothing on it, you know. I mean, a lot of rust, and actually they were painted at some point. So again, I'm gonna test the paint, because now if they use the paint, they probably had to use high quality paint, and back then, you know, 60 years ago, or actually no, more than this. Wow, it's 80 years ago. They may have used some paint which contained asbestos, which provide durability and flexibility. So that was actually good paint with asbestos. Now we have to deal with it, so this will be tested. And going down here, again, you can see plaster, you can see a lot of things. These blacks right there, they have a mortar. Very old stuff has to be tested, right? And on the ground, you know, there's debris, mixed of stuff, you know, it's kind of messy here, but what do we know about this? Not much really, we have to test it. I don't even know if these pipes maybe had asbestos insulation at some time and it was abated or removed. So that debris down there will tell me a lot. Must be tested, definitely. I'm still in the same apartment. I want to show you something interesting. You know, these black asphalt kind of spots on the wall, they were used as a glue, as adhesive to install the mirror. So now this is taken down, or maybe fell down, I'm not sure what happened here, but this material definitely has to be tested. It's probably much newer, because now it looks like a new generation material, but again, we don't know, must be tested. And also, right behind this mirror here, there's the face of the fireplace. Mantle on the top, I believe, and there's like a side, because you can see this is the marble facing of the fireplace, and that gypsum, that pieces right there, they have to be tested, because they probably very old, and back then they used to use materials like this to install fireplaces. And obviously this is again like a thermal equipment, right? So they might use some material which contains asbestos. Asbestos, as we know, would provide heat resistance. So it's very good material for the purpose, right? So these are to be tested. They may contain asbestos. And here's a nice example of the ceiling opening. This is quite large. It's like probably 4-inch on the side. So that's actually a nice opening, which I think was here before we got here. Because I would not make anything as big like as this, because there would be too much disturbance. That can cause contamination. So my opening would be probably inch by inch or something like this. But anyways, to have something like this open on the ceiling somewhere, it's a good thing, because you can see actually through the layers, right? So we can see structural concrete on the top of it, right? The gray item. And right below we see the plaster, which we call brown coat, because it's kind of brownish, right? And on top of it is skin coat. Plasters are suspect materials, concretes are not. I may test it actually for the sake of for the peace of mind, because who knows what they added in the 40s, right? So that would be a good idea to actually take a sample. That would be PLM type of sample, not very expensive, so it's a good idea to collect it. Right? And this is the location where we just talked about this wall. There's a chase actually in the wall, which I was surprised there was nothing in actually to test it. It's actually empty. There's no piping here, but look at this. There's a bunch of debris there. So we don't know if these debris were contaminated. Maybe there was some asbestos materials at some point. So these have to be tested, and also mortar, right? In these brick stones has to be tested. On the side we have kind of CMU, must be tested, right? There's something like in the corner, some material, but that looks like it's plaster. This must all be tested, because they all are asbestos-suspect materials. So still nothing here, but again, suspect locations, suspect materials can be identified. Another interesting item in this apartment, there's actual wires in the wall. I'm trying to get a better angle. Since this apartment will be got renovated, fully renovated, most of the walls will be disturbed in some way. Look at this. This is the wire, kind of old type of wire with this canvas or wrapping on them. These are suspect materials. I don't want to touch them at this point. I have to go and shut off this circuit, but that's what you have, these wires. Maybe I want to show you one more location, which is also open here. Another wire. See, these two wires actually are the new type. They have this insulation, this shaft made of plastic, right? So they're a new type. But if you look deep inside, then you're gonna see the old wires, which are original wires from the 20th or 40th, right? When the building was built and wired. And these are asbestos-suspect materials. So these must be tested because if they're gonna open these walls and probably pull out the wires, so they contain a lot of asbestos. Because as you know, asbestos is also a great electrical insulator. That's why now you can find it in many electrical equipment as an insulator. This is an example of a nice hardwood floor, very old, probably my estimate is like 80 years old, and looks beautiful. It's very strong and in good shape. But if you look below it, on the bottom of it, this is where we have when we open the Pandora box, where you can see all kind of installation. Like, well, we have a radiator here, so obviously some piping going there. We have to check for the asbestos materials in form of the thermal insulations. And there's also a bunch of the different fillers they used to put there. Some kind of marbles or maybe loose material, and sometimes they also put there something which is called vermiculite. It was used very popular as the thermal insulator because it's very similar to asbestos, by the way, but it's not asbestos material, but it's very often is contaminated with asbestos. So when we find vermiculite, we have to run another test to see if vermiculite is contaminated. And that is actually quite expensive test now, so not the good news for the owner. But again, these may contain asbestos. So this is what's below the floor. A lot of things, and we probably have to go even deeper with this. We have to uncover some of this material to see what's below it, because during the renovation, actually this renovation would require a disturbance of the floor. They want to replace it. So that's asbestos-suspect materials down there. Another example of the floor material, this is a bathroom. We tested these tiles actually on the ground and adhesive below them. So the contractor was allowed to check what's below the tiles. Now that, well, look at this, how much different materials were removed from that little tiny hole. So these were probably some kind of debris or materials which were put in purpose, like this black stuff. That's some kind of insulator, a construction filler. So all of these is kind of difficult to identify because they're not even homogeneous, right? So I will have to collect samples from each one, try to do it, but I'm not sure if I can identify each material separately. So I'm probably going to end up collecting like a fistful of this material. Once I give up on collecting them separately and give them to the lab and mark them as a construction debris, or actually, debris. And look at the hole, it's a lot of stuff, right? So not much on the top, but if you go below these finishing materials, then you find many suspect materials. And most of the time, unfortunately, you can find some asbestos material there. You can see now slightly higher, that's a drywall right here, right? But behind the drywall, actually it's not drywall, it's a plaster. One layer on the mesh, and on top of the plaster you see glue, which was used to install these tiles. So again, we have to test this glue right here, and we have to test grout on these tiles right here because they may contain asbestos. These are old tiles, you can tell, right? Kind of old-fashioned stuff. Very durable, by the way, because they're still in good shape. But if they're old-fashioned, they installed before the 80s to use asbestos very freely. It was commonly used.